Welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. My name is William Haas, and I'm your host for today's conversation. My guest today is Ian McCluskey. He is the co-founder and CEO of December Yaupon. We're going to be talking about his business, his journey into ownership, the challenges that he's faced, and the wins along the way, and get a real look at what it's like to build and run a business. Ian, it is an absolute honor to have you on the show. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Before we dig in too much into your business, I'd love for you to give us just a quick background about who you are and a little bit about your business.
Absolutely. Thank you, William. So I grew up in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, and only recently moved to Texas to launch this business. And it's a bit of a roundabout journey to this point. Basically, I had about a decade in renewable energy, and I've always been really interested in food and ag. And I learned about Yopon, which I'll describe here in a minute. Um, in about 2018 at a time before there were very many options on the market. But it fascinated me and I really enjoyed it. And then years later, uh, started working on sort of a weekend project based around Yopon and decided just about 6 months ago to go full time on this project. And so now I'm a full-time resident in Austin, Texas with my co-founder, who's also my partner, my girlfriend, and really glad to be here. It's been an amazing journey to this point. The business is definitely my main focus today, and I
Mhm.
am just getting, we're just getting started. So it feels like this is the next big step in my career.
Okay, awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more about the December Yopon.
So December crafts a Yopon Nitro cold brew you can see behind me in Austin, Texas, with regenerative organic certified shade grown Texas Yopon. Um, it's if you haven't heard of Yaupon, if any of your listeners have not heard of it, it's a descendant of yerba mate, which is much more well known these days, and it's traditionally dark roasted. So it has all the same health benefits, the same energy boost as the yerba mate, but it's grown here in North America and it has a more rich and satisfying flavor. We find, and many of our customers find at least. Um, we launched in April in stores here in Austin, and we have really strong traction in terms of, I won't list all the statistics, but our metrics on sales are strong in terms of velocities. And so we're looking to scale up into statewide distribution this year and nationwide distribution next year. And we're also working on a shelf-stable product for direct-to-consumer sales online to launch in time for the holidays, if not sooner. So that's our that's where we're at today. And down the line, we're looking at a couple of potential options in terms of growth, whether that's joining a larger beverage brand or potentially going for full integration, depending on the market conditions over the coming 5 years or so.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really awesome. And just coming out, just breaking ground in April. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome and getting moving.
Yeah. There have been a number of other Yopon brands that have brought products to market, including, bottled teas. However, we're the first ones that have really approached it wholeheartedly from this traditional preparation standpoint of dark roasted
Hmm.
and brewed strong. And I think that's part of why we've seen strong adoption so far. The challenge is, and I'm sure we'll kind of get to talk about this more, but the challenge is that our product is harvested in the US where people are paid a full living wage, and we're competing with industries that are paying their farm workers $1 a day
Hmm.
in countries, 5,000 miles away. And so the margin math is the biggest challenge for us, but we've been really hyper focused on efficiency, localized efficiencies, and working really closely with our manufacturing partners and building strong contracts with our suppliers so that we can safely kind of forecast and price in a way that will keep us sustainable while we grow.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, well, let me ask you this: as we're going into business, what does a typical day in the life of Ian look like there at December Yopon?
So typically I'm waking up, I'm checking on our accounts, seeing how they're doing on stock and making sure, if I need to do, I try to kind of schedule my deliveries together twice a week or so. Some days I'm out doing demos at stores. And then we got some markets and pop-ups, activations. We do events with a lot of
Hmm.
local businesses. So there's a lot of that social out in public activity that's mostly, and, that's the aspect of this that I love. And then of course, in between all of that, I'm spending a lot of time on operations. So I'm currently responsible for all of our operations. Finance. I'm right now, especially over the next coming weeks, I'm raising money. So I have some VC meetings, some angel investor meetings coming up, some pitches coming up that we talked about before we started
Hmm.
recording. So that's a big part of my day. And so I'm working 8 to 10 hour days, but I like to think that a lot of the time that I'm spending out of the house, is I really enjoy it. And so I don't really consider it, how to it doesn't drain me at all. And then I have a good kind of support network both here in Austin and back home, who I get to spend time with and stay active. And that's part of the fun of this is our audience for our brand, our focus of our brand are people who I would naturally spend time around anyway. So it's not like I'm out here, trying to break into communities that I don't already feel comfortable in or comfortable around. It feels, so far, most of our events, it's like those are kind of the best times that I have during my week is when I'm out at these activations hanging around with our customers, whether that's the bar manager or the cashier or the people that like to come to the restaurant where it's being served, the regulars. So that's that's my typical, week. It it varies a lot day to day, but it's fun.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like you have a great little company to be growing and working in.
Yeah. We're having fun.
Sounds great. All right. So we talked to a lot of business owners at many different stages in their business. Some are brand new startups all the way through like 10-year veterans. So for the audience, can you give us a little context on what you're with you and your partner, kind of how that breaks down and how y'all break your activities down for December Yaupon, and just maybe a little bit about your partner so we can have a better understanding of what your
Yeah.
business looks like.
That's a great question. That's evolved over the years. So when we first started this project, we didn't do a packaged good. We were only doing to-go beverages at markets and at a little cafe.
Okay.
And so she was a huge part of she was, essentially our lead barista. And
Okay.
I would be there too. Her name is Dorian. So she would be doing a lot of the customer service, a lot of the kind of art direction, creative direction, um, all amazing stuff. And she also did quite a bit of our social media, marketing, networking. Meanwhile, I was, again, focused on operations, finance, etc. Now, with the current package good, so she's doing sales principally and also, helping out with our activations and all of that. And then we also just brought on a social media manager and a photographer. So that's freed up some more of her time to focus on sales, because of course that allows now we have two people that come to all these events that are documenting them and then putting together content calendars and strategy and producing all of the content and posting it. And so that's been a huge relief for both of us because neither of us come from that kind of social media background. Neither of us have like training or experience in that. So everything that we've done to date before we hired those people was very by the seat of our pants. And so now we finally have some professionals on board to help us with that. So that's been good.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, every business owner we talk to is growing through something. Okay. A new season, new challenge, new level. What right now is the big thing you're growing through there at Yopon?
Yeah, so December's main goal over the next few weeks is to find a lead investor with some credibility in the Austin food and beverage scene, because the money is crucial for scaling up while preserving our margins and not draining not draining our cash flow with like a high interest rate if we were to say borrow money, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But even more importantly, having backer, having someone signed on who has some credibility in this space, whether they've, launched a successful brand that's well recognized, or they're known within the industry as a connector or something like that,
Hmm.
really changes the conversation when I approach a new business about carrying the product. Because, the product is strong. We know that for a fact. It has, strong repeat customers. Um, and the mission is strong, right? Where it's regenerative organic, so we're improving the quality of Texas soil and water. And so all of that's great, but things move much faster when there's a credible name who's been in Austin for years. And I recognize
Mm.
clearly that we are relatively new to Texas, and we're here because our farmers are here. And also because Austin is an awesome city for this type of project. Um, but we want this to be a Austin brand with Austin ownership, right? With people who are locals, have been locals that have a stake in the game, and we want that, we want that to money to kind of, as the business grows, to continue to circulate back into Austin. So that's the goal right now. And we have a few really strong leads there that we'll be connecting with over the next couple weeks that are, first and second degree connections. And we're excited to get that moving with the goal of, yeah, having that in place and launching our first big production run hopefully about a month from now. Could, things always take a little longer, but sometime in July effectively is the goal. So that's where we're at.
Okay, awesome. So let's fast forward a little bit. What does it look like to you? What does December Yaupon look like to you in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I love the agricultural aspect. I was in solar towards, for the first half of my career in renewables, and I spent some time in Latin America, Central America, when they kind of brought net metering into law there, which is the law that allows individuals and companies to sell surplus clean energy back into the grid. Um, and I was really fascinated by the vertically integrated coffee, tobacco, chocolates, fruit companies that were, locally owned in some of these countries. And they had everything from the production all the way through retail. And these are companies that aren't typically recognized in the US, like in terms of you wouldn't recognize their names. But in those
Okay.
countries, they're kind of the best employers. They pay their employees the best, and they compete with a lot of the multinationals. They're able to hold their own because of their vertical integration. And I thought, when I was there, I thought, why can't we do this in the US? And then, with these types of products, and it occurred to me, oh, well, because these don't grow in the US. So when I then learned about Yopon, I kind of connected the dots. And so I see, we work really closely with our suppliers. However, there are only two farmers in the US that are producing Yopon at
Hmm.
scale, and they're both right outside of Austin. And they're both amazing. Shout out TX Brand T and Cat Spring Yopon. They work together, and they're amazing people there. And as the industry grows, the multi-million dollar production setups that they both have at some point will not be able to keep up, and we'll need to have more people farming and producing this
Hmm.
crop. And they're excited and looking forward to supporting that growth and kind of being at the center of that. And so, for me, I love the idea of having a December Yopon farm, December Yopon production, um, and eventually, potentially even some retail presence or something like that. We're not planning on opening a chain of cafes or anything along those lines, because food service is not the idea there, but possibly having like tasting rooms or outlets, kind of like there are some kind of analogies that you could look at where people would be able to come connect directly with the company, and so maybe they're even co-located with some production facilities or farms, so people can come out and really see what's happening behind the scenes. without having to like say, for example, right now, if you want to check out a coffee farm, you're flying 2,000 miles or more to go and see what that looks like. Whereas for us, it would be um, a day trip out to the countryside outside of Austin. And this crop grows in Florida, Virginia, so there's a lot of potential there um, for access in places all over the kind of the southeast.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love that you're able to do that, getting that set up. Okay, so there's where we are and where we want to be. What's sitting in the middle of those two things, and what's in the way?
So I think most people would point to the awareness question. And so for us, this is I love that aspect of this. Again, I love talking about it. I think it's just a really fascinating story and behind this plant. And the way that we plan to approach it, right? We don't have the budget to compete with all of these celebrity vanity energy drink projects or the international coffee finance industry, that's a huge, industry. Um, what we do have is a brand that feels natural and has been kind of adopted by communities that aren't typically served well by the coffee and the energy drinks and even the iced tea brands, right? And so some examples are some of the emerging kind of more niche sports that are being distributed by what's called over-the-top distribution networks. For example, Flow Sports, which is an Austin-based company. And so
Mhm.
those are things like archery, grappling, kayak, polo. I could go on and on. There's a long list, right? But sports that haven't typically been courted by these larger brands. And so those are a much more kind of approachable communities for us. And they tend to really appreciate what we're offering because it's truly natural, right? We don't even use quote unquote natural flavors in our products. We don't use any chemicals whatsoever. It's all just real ingredients. And Yaupon makes a great pre-workout because it contains theobromine, theocrine, theophylline, caffeine, of course. It's
Huh.
quercetin, so it's antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. It makes an excellent pre-workout, and because it's low acid and low tannins, it won't upset the gut like sometimes coffee can, and sometimes these energy drinks that are packed with acidifiers to make them shelf stable. So that's one venue. Another one is the creative arts organizations. So again, an area that's been neglected by traditional energy, where we have a really, kind of grassroots story, and it's all focused on creativity. I mean, our tagline is literally real energy for creative people. So we really want to support creatives and their pursuit. And we find that Yaupon is really a much more expansive energy boost than coffee or a lot of these energy drinks that kind of put the drinker into like tunnel vision mode and really can be hard to like creatively problem solve with that high dose of just caffeine that just kind of kicks in really hard and spikes the cortisol levels and everything. And then third, we're seeing a lot of growth in the sort of tabletop gaming, Renaissance fair type community. So for example, there's a bar here in Austin called the Tiny Minotaur. Very, very it's a membership club, but people are able to come and purchase a day pass, and it's really well loved in the community. And they serve our drinks both as cocktail mixers and just as simple cans. And so we see really strong sales there. Because a lot of people are going there that aren't necessarily trying to drink, but they're doing different activities, whether it's costume competitions or games or um, music, right? And so they want to have a little energy for the evening that doesn't feel jittery. And so they find that the Yopon is a really strong match there. And that type of audience really appreciates the honest story behind this. We're not backed by, this isn't a private equity play. This isn't a celebrity play. It's like we're really connected with the land and the farmers and the community here, and that resonates with people who care about that kind of thing. So those are a few areas that we're looking at among others, and I think once the word starts, I mean, it's already happening, right? As the word starts to spread, those communities have a lot of kind of interconnections between them, and so um, it will be the way that we see it is it's sort of, an underground. We don't have to pay the big media companies or the big advertising companies, thousands or millions of dollars to do billboards and national ads because it will spread word of mouth through really selective partnerships with people who are truly aligned. And that's our strategy. And that's why we don't need to raise $1 million. We just need enough really to pay for, good inventory and some good select partnerships.
Yeah, that all makes sense. That all makes sense. All right, this one's gonna go into a little bit more personal question.
Okay.
Um, when you imagine the vision of your business and everything's finally working out the way you see it, in 3 to 5 years, what does life look like for you and your partner
Yeah.
outside of the business? Let's add that outside of the business.
Yeah, okay. So we're not married yet, but we're talking about that sort of thing. Neither of us are really like traditional. Neither of us really think super traditionally about that, but I think there's a certain value to that sort of thing. And we're talking about having a family, having children at some point. The goal right now, I think, is if things go well over the next year and we're seeing good momentum, then that really becomes a strong, option, strong opportunity. And so I think we see most likely we'll still be in Texas, excuse me, for the next 3 to 5 years at least, and possibly longer, possibly as long as the rest of our lives, but with the ability to kind of spend time in other parts of the country where we have home bases. So, for example, she's from Vermont, I'm from Seattle, and so those are both areas where we think that this product would do well. And so we may have,
Hmm.
a headquarters here in Texas, but also footprints in different parts of the country, offices in different parts of the country. And so the goal is not necessarily to shoot for like the white picket fence kind of American dream. It's more so, build a company that truly supports both its community of customers and its employees, and have both of those distributed all over the country, and be present for both of those groups, as well as, have a fun lifestyle for us and any kids that we may have.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Another real quick question, and this one's just so other business owners and like yourself can kind of like, how does each of us like give a little advice on when we have these days, but how do you manage the hard days?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of people that I can call on, and I do call on when
Mm,
when I run into, different challenges, whether it's my parents, my mom, my dad, my partner, of course. We both kind of pick each other up when one or the other is struggling. And when we're both, if we're both having a tough time, then we like to lean on our friends. I got lucky when we moved down here. Right next door, there's another young guy from Seattle that we moved in right next to. And so he and I like to we take our bikes around the lake, go work out, go play we do flag football together on a team. So that's been really awesome. And then, frankly, I like to go just hang out at our retail partners, location. So whether it's Tiny Minotaur or just, go do a little shopping at one of the grocery stores, talk to the cashiers, talk to the manager. That's always fun. Get to share news, share the good news, any good news that we've had, any wins that we've had with our customers, and they like to hear about it too. I mean, there's a lot of people are supporting it because it's local, creates rural,
yeah.
good jobs in rural areas around Texas. So the positive feedback really outweighs any sort of negative, energy that we get. And we do, some people who are in adjacent industries that see this as like a threat do sometimes sometimes there is negative energy, um, towards what we're doing. And that's understandable, right? I think anytime where people feel like their bottom line is potentially will be threatened over time, um, can become, unfriendly. Yeah, and so that's something that we do deal with, but it's also I'm pretty, at this point I'm pretty used to it. So it's nothing new. And I'm pretty comfortable. And in fact, it's kind of fun. I kind of enjoy that aspect of it. I've always really liked a challenge. So that is it has it's a double-edged sword, but that's just kind of who I am, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of us business owners run into that competition and dealing with that. It's all
Yeah.
part of it. But
Yeah.
I guess the real nugget out of that whole conversation was if anybody wants to come find you, they know where to find you.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Definitely.
uh,
Yeah. We welcome, we very much welcome all sorts of interactions like that. Like I love getting emails from people in other parts of the country saying, "Oh, I wish I could buy your drink. It's not available here. Can you kind of tell me how to make it?" And it's like, absolutely. The way that we see it is sometimes people are like, "Oh, well, you're friends with the other Yaupon companies." Of course I am. That we represent, a fraction of a percent of the market in this country. And we we're not competing against each other. We're competing against the coffee industry, because
yeah,
that's the dominant beverage in the US. I mean, it's almost as popular as water in this country, and the um the vast majority of coffee that's consumed in this country is from the by far the highest proportion comes from Brazil, from sectors of land that have been that are deforested Amazon rainforest, with people getting
mhm,
paid sub-poverty wages, high use of pesticides, fungicides that are banned in the rest of the world to prop that industry up. And that's we're basically our goal is to alleviate some pressure from that. Of course, we don't want to replace. I still drink coffee, right? I try to drink this ethically sourced coffee. I like to drink a little coffee in the morning and then have my Yaupon around 10 or 11, and then I'm good. Um, when I say we're competing with coffee, we're not competing with the little local specialty coffee shops around town. We're competing with the Folgers and the Nescafe and that sort of thing,
yeah.
and looking to alleviate some pressure from that industry. And so, we love talking about this stuff and what the potential is for Yopon, whether it's, with people who are skeptical or people who are already 100% on board and just want to learn more about how to kind of share that information and propagate that information to their friends and family.
Awesome. Well, Ian, this has been a fantastic conversation and learning all about December Yopon.
Thanks.
But now we're going to transition over to our rapid fire questions. So, are
Okay.
you ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So, what's the key uh, to success for you?
Oof. Okay, so I got to answer fast too. Key to success. I think key to success is true. The key to long-term success, and I don't define success as just, oh, I made a bunch of money and now I can retire, because we see how we can look at the health stats, for people that kind of approach life that way, right? And it doesn't typically pan out very well. For me, to success is pursuing something meaningful, and the way to pursue something that's meaningful to you is to really listen. I think take time to sit quietly and really listen, and to do on a regular basis in terms of, hey, what feels most important to me? What am I really passionate about, and what can I not live without? And then do that. And that will always that people can feel the authenticity and the true passion behind that, and that's where success starts, I think,
Okay, that's
and
great.
ends. Yeah.
Uh, what's one piece of advice you would give to other business owners?
Mm, I think right now is a very tricky time to start a business. There's a ton of money, especially, I'll just speak for food and beverage in particular right now, because that's what I'm doing. There's a lot of money sloshing around in this space behind products that are not that strong. And I think that we'll see over the next um 3 to 5 years, a lot of those products will just disappear, and a lot of
Mhm.
those investments, for the people that are making those investments, it's a small amount of money, but for the people who are in this industry, it's huge. It's such a different scale between the people coming in from tech or media, uh and the people that have been in the food and beverage space for a long time. And it's just, it's like a 10x difference in terms of the size of these numbers. And so I think a lot of these vanity projects, frankly, will be kind of will come out in the wash. Um, and so building sustainably is critical. Like basically, there's a story about Harrison Ford and how he became an actor. When he moved to Hollywood, everybody else was moving to Hollywood at the same time, and he became a carpenter because he knew that it was only gonna be a matter of time before a lot of people moved back home. And through that job as a carpenter is how he landed his role in Star Wars. And I like to approach business in a similar way where I always think about how can we make sure that a year from now, even if things don't go exactly as planned, we're still here, we're still, producing, we're still in the market, and we're still making this happen because that's that's what lasts versus big waves of venture capital and private equity money coming in and out of the space.
Okay, great. What's a book or podcast you're into right now?
Um, I've been listening to a lot of, I do mostly books on tape these days,
Yeah.
like the rest of us. I've been listening to a lot of David Zalay, who's this Hungarian author who I find fascinating. It's really just like vignettes of kind of modern life, but since I love travel, but I don't get to travel as much anymore, it feels like a way to kind of do a little bit of vicarious living through his books. Yeah. So I enjoy those.
Okay. All right. All right. Now, this last one's a fun question.
Okay.
If I had a little bit of magic dust and I could sprinkle it on any one spot in your business,
Mm.
where would it go?
All right. Let's see. I would say wish me luck. Give me some luck um for our pitch competition. We have a pitch competition on the 25th this month, and if we win, we
Okay.
get a free booth. Yeah. So if I don't blow it, I think we have a strong chance of winning. So I need a little magic to make sure
All
I
right.
nail
There
that.
you go, buddy. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on to the final question of the day, share with
Mhm.
our audiences how they can follow you, how they can find and learn more about you, and how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So our Instagram is our most active platform, and we also just launched a TikTok. Both of them are just December Yaupon. So if you look us up on either Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook for that matter, December Yaupon, it'll pop right up. Our website is decemberyaupon.com. Easy. Those are all the best places to find the business. And then I'm also on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me, Ian McCluskey on LinkedIn. You can kind of learn more about my background. I've helped scale some I've helped, I've done some major scaling in the renewable space. So if you want to kind of see
Hmm.
my background and also anybody who's listening this who is looking to break into the renewable energy space, I'd be happy to make introductions and see if I can, support you, jump on a phone call. I still consult in renewable energy, so I still love that space. And so happy to make connections in that industry as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, here's the final question of the day, Ian. What is most inspiring you today?
Today, well, I went to a run club this morning that meets outside of one of the grocery stores that sells our product, and we find that we have two kind of main demographics. We have the 18 to 24 crowd that loves to try new things. And then we got the 35 to 55, 58 crowd that really appreciates what this beverage represents in terms of benefits
Hmm.
to their, mental and physical health. And so this running club was mostly of that second group. And it was really fun at the end. I shared samples and everybody's really excited. And I was glad to hear, a lot of them planning to come and buy some cans from the grocery store. And the grocery store itself is a family owned. It's been around in Austin for 100 years, still family owned. So that's what I enjoy. It's for me, it's not about the boardrooms or the national Kroger alliances, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about the local grassroots businesses. And at some point, we'll be scaling up, but we'll always be focused on serving the local communities where we are first. That will always be our priority. So
Well, I love that heart. I love that heart. Taking care of the locals. That's fantastic, and that's an Austin
Yep.
like mindset for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, Ian, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing. To everyone watching, save the show, come back to it, because Ian dropped some really great insight and some really great knowledge. So don't forget to like and subscribe, get notified when we have new conversations. And thanks to all of you. And a special thanks to you, Ian. And
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to trying my first December Yaupon. I haven't had one
Yeah.
yet, so now I
Where
got to come find
where
this
where
thing.
are you based? Are you based in Austin?
I'm in Leander, so I'm up in
Okay, so not
Leander.
far. Yeah, cool, cool, cool. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but
Awesome.
I'm always down in there. But now I know to look for it. I'm definitely going to try it. And
Yeah,
you
and
caught
it,
me at pre-workout,
yeah, there
so
you go.
I'm
There you
like,
go.
all right,
Nice,
I've got to
nice.
come get some.
Yeah, it's great before a lift. If you're in town, feel free to let me know. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure.